Merry Advent season, Keith.
Merry Advent season.
Welcome to Advent.
Yeah. People starting to have their houses decorated and
Now we're starting Advent. We're starting Advent when Advent's supposed to be starting.
when it's supposed to be. That's correct.
Even though Christmas Eve is on a Sunday, it's the fourth Sunday Advent.
Yeah. I know some churches decided to start it a week earlier just to make it
all work.
But this Sunday is actually the start of Advent.
Yep.
So just want to make that.
No, I mean,
point
I
clear.
did have my Christmas decorations up before
Me too.
Thanksgiving.
Me too.
But that's fine.
Me too. So we're in Advent, so I figure we'll do a few weeks of talking about Advent-y kind of stuff.
Yeah, and our theme is choose your own adventure.
Advent. Did you ever read the Choose Your Own Adventure books?
All right.
So if you didn't know, Choose Your Own Adventure
yeah.
is a book series in the 80s where, like, when you read through it part of it, and then it would give you a choice. You know, like, go into the room or run away, right? But if you choose one, you went to one page, and if you chose the other one, you went to a different page, and then, like, the story changed throughout. And you probably had like 8 or 10 or whatever different story plot lines that you could go through. So did you ever read any of those?
I saw them.
You did.
I saw them. Public service announcement for all the kiddos out there. Read your books. Start reading your books when you're young. Read your books that are about fun things and stories. And read your books, kids. And,
It's good for the imagination.
Yeah, end up smart like your Uncle Keith here.
Smart.
And not like me. I didn't read the books as a child. No. I got into reading when I was 25 years old.
Well, there was a different couple books that were like that. The Choose Your Own Adventure series. You had another series that was called Time Machine, where you could, like, in the book you were like jumping back into time or forward or whatever. It was kind of
started one once, but I never made it to the page where you got to choose. Right.
What was fun about them really is that when you got to the end, you could, like, go back and read it again and choose something different. So it was even though you weren't. Well, here's two things. One, what's great is you got a book that's, like, 200 pages thick, but really in reality you're only reading 100 of them.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right? Okay.
So you really feel like a
bookworm. You're like, man, I read this whole book today, But I would go back and make different choices, or sometimes I would, like, say, okay, turn to page 11, and then turn to page 11. Oh, you died. Like, oh, I'm going back, and I'm going to pick the other one, right? So sometimes I cheated.
Wish the Oregon Trail game was Choose Your Own Adventure.
Right? Yeah. You died of dysentery. So anyway, Choose Your Own Adventure is kind of the basis of it. So each week we kind of look at
we're gonna look at angels appearing to different people, and then choices decisions they had to make. This week we're talking about Zechariah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll read. You know what? You want me to just read it real? That's a lot.
That's a lot of reading. Let's sum it up. Sum it up for us.
It's a lot to reading for a kid who doesn't read books. But Zechariah, the priest, he goes in. He goes in. He gets drawn in the churchly raffle lottery drawing to go in and be the dude who goes in and burns the incense. Goes in and does it. While in there, boom, visited by the archangel. Gabriel gets told he, at his ripe old age, him and his wife's ripe old age, they're going to have a baby.
Firstborn.
Yep. And he's like, what?
Say what?
Yeah, say what? And then the angel's like, yeah, now this is happening. You can't talk. And they have a baby.
And then he can talk.
Yep. And the name is John. And then he can talk after he names the baby John. And
the angel told him to name the baby John.
That's right. So that's our story.
That's our story.
But we have
sticking to it.
Yep. He was visited by an angel in the holiest of holies in the temple.
Yeah.
When he was doing his priestly duty, and that's our story. So
really, the choice that
the
that
story?
he had
You've
to
heard the
make.
story,
Yeah,
right?
I've heard the story. the choice he had to make is in that moment when that angel's talking to him and saying, "Hey, you're gonna have your firstborn, and we know you've been trying to have kids. You've been praying. Your prayers are answered. We're gonna give you a baby." And he at that moment he could have either chosen to have faith and been grateful and thank you, and that's wow, that sounds great, or have a little doubt and seek some confirmation, right? And he asked the angel, "How do I know this to be true?" Like, come on, really?
I know it blows my mind, but
I was thinking about this for a while though. If I think it's so normal though, it's such a normal human behavior, because if you had this thing appear to you and say, "I'm Gabriel, I'm an angel of the Lord, and everything that you've ever wanted, like the thing that you've always wanted, I'm going to make happen for you." Like how do you not question that? Like where were you 5 years ago, man? You know what I mean? Like part of it's that, and then part of you is kind of like, how do you know it's not like some in modern times we now know there's mental situations that would cause you to maybe see something that's not actually there. Yeah. And so I think that I would say we are probably more skeptical today than people 2,000 plus years ago.
because I've not seen God. I've not audibly heard the voice of God. So, yeah, it's frightening, right? Like, first thing the angel always says is, "Hey, don't be afraid.
Don't be afraid.
Don't freak out.
Hold up.
Hold on.
I'm not here to hurt you." I think that's I think that's a norm. To me, it's a normal reaction, right? And there's other examples in the Bible of, again, to your point, the angel had to be like, "Do not be afraid," right? Or people questioning what God wants them to do or whatever, right? I mean, we talked about Noah not that long ago. There's lots of examples of people like getting this divine intervention and being like,
let's lay out the fleece.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it again.
Let's do that again.
Let's try, do the opposite.
Like I want to make sure that this is accurate, right? So I think to me, I think it's normal. But like, what does, and I want to be sensitive a little bit to the fact that, when you read a story like this, and you've got somebody who is a priest, in Luke, it says a very pious person, right? Follows all the rules of God, right? Like somebody that's very upstanding.
Okay.
Wanted a kid forever, right? And now is in his ripe old age and is finally getting what he's been praying. Like your prayers have been answered, right? So it's twofold. One is, okay, does that give us this weird example of like, well, if I'm good enough and I pray hard enough, eventually I'll get what I really want, right? Or
I would say no.
I know. I would say the same thing, or why, and of course we know from the rest of the Bible, but if you were back in that time and you heard of this situation and this priest praying really hard, finally mute for 9 months and then can talk and has a son and blah, 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 why him and not me? Right? And so I think that for some people, this kind of story can be a little disheartening.
Oh, for sure.
Even though it's meant to be the opposite.
I think you're touching on that human nerve that we've talked many times about, that human nerve of comparison, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're always just making comparisons.
Yeah.
between ourselves and others, and then it's what we do with that comparison that that'll make and break us as far as our faith, as of being who God's created us to be, living into what our purpose and mission is, living into what God wants for our lives. Like we were saying a couple weeks ago, you're talking about like we had the selfish times of our lives, right? Like those selfish times of your life when you're like, it's almost like God's not around. Well, you can't see him because you're only looking inward.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the conversation we are having a couple weeks ago. And I think if you do this comparison thing, you're always in the why me, why this, why, look at them, they got it, right, and you're not looking to what you can do what can you do for others, like what can you do, what difference can you make, and go make that difference. Then this world of possibilities opens up to you.
I think that I have these. Sometimes I have these conversations with people where, so I have a wide range of what I would say are friends, right? People that I know from different online communities. I'm involved in some camera, video communities and something.
Friends?
I mean, some of them I know really well. So I would say that they're a friend. I mean, I wouldn't invite them over for Thanksgiving, friend, right? But
That's family.
But I know. Well, a Friendsgiving, right?
Ooh, love a good Friendsgiving.
But I know them. I know them personally. I've interacted with them.
Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes I have these conversations with them where they're like, this newer kind of thing that's going around is that people between the ages of 18 and 25 to 30 that don't have a house will never be able to get a house. The interest rates are too high, the housing prices are too high, the wages are so low, right? That they're like, we just can't afford a house. And then like they're stuck in this concept that the rent is higher than what a housing payment would be. They're approved to rent at that, say $3,000. That, well, I can rent a place at $3,000, but the bank won't let me buy the same place for $2,000 a month, right? And what I always find it interesting is, and this kind of brings to your point, is when I'm like, well, dude, move out of LA. You know what I mean? Like, stop living in San Francisco, my man. Like move out of a high housing situation. Well, no, that's where, my work is. Find something else to do.
Yeah.
Like, and it's the difference is looking at people and seeing what they have and wanting that instead of repositioning yourself to say,
change your perspective
of, and even in this is what I want in life. So I'm going to go and do something to get that, and not be jealous or lash out at the people that maybe have what I want where I'm at, but figure out what is it that I can do.
Yeah, and I don't think we're projecting anything on Zachariah here too. I want to clear that up. Like, like people say they've made their peace with God, right? Like I don't know that Zachariah had, he's faithfully doing his priestly duties, and I don't think
he's upset.
I'm not
or
reading
anything.
bitterness
No.
into this.
Not at all.
It's just a great blessing.
Yeah. But he does get the answer. I mean, he does approach it in what we're saying is a very human way of like,
Disbelief.
I'm sorry, are you sure?
Disbelief.
Right? I'm an old dude now.
Doubt.
Right, doubt, And I think that's such a human, it's a human characteristic in everything that we do. We doubt ourselves and our capabilities. We doubt, when you see an ad on TV, lose weight, just join X diet, whatever. We doubt that. That's probably a good doubt though. But you know what I mean? Like, you doubt that you can, oh, I don't know, I need to really lose weight, but I just can't do it. Right. Like this doubt is constantly running through us.
And then with
all
that,
day.
we go and, I think when you get on the diet exercise thing, it's always the diet plan and the exercise plan that didn't work.
Right. I've tried it. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
Exercise doesn't work. I tried it for like 3 days.
It doesn't work. Right? Like it's always that doesn't work, not me that didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's what it is. He's doubted his ability to have a child for so long, and that he's, statistically incapable at this point in terms of his age and his wife's age, that it's just the first thing is that doubt, because they've tried, it hasn't worked, instead of having faith, not a wish, but real faith, right? And I think that's the difference. So and kind of my big point is, if you think, like, because I read this story sometimes and I think, well, if an angel appeared to me, I wouldn't doubt what they had to say to me. Well, you know what? You probably would, right? Like, because it's just who we are as I think people,
And I think too, like part of this, I want to read like verse 17 here. It's not just that he's going to have a child. It's not just that he's going to have a son. That's miraculous enough, but you're going to call him John, and he will bring back many of the people of Israel to the Lord their God, and he will go on before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. Right, like that.
I'm bringing you a son with a
Destiny.
very specific destiny.
Yes.
Yeah.
You will be the father to a prophet.
Yeah.
Who will make way the path for the Lord. And
but you notice also in his response though, he didn't say, well, how do you know this child's going to do all this, right?
He's like, how do you even know the child's
It was like, wait, I'm old and my wife's getting up there in years. Like, how do I know this for sure? Like, he's not even to the point of doubting the destiny.
Yeah, you're right. So then Gabriel comes back. The angel says, I'm Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to tell you this good news. And now you will be silent and not able to speak until the day this happens, because you did not believe my words, which will come true at their appointed time.
I like the feistiness of Gabriel.
I love it, man. I mean, I wouldn't have loved it if I was Zechariah. I'd be like, and then like I could see Zechariah just like trying to apologize, but he can't, right? Because he can't say anything. He's like, I'm sorry. Nothing.
Oh shoot! I wonder what he must have thought like the first like month or two, right? Because like obviously 6 months into it, your wife's pregnant, right?
Yeah.
Like you get it, it's happening. So you get that faith, that hope, that back, right? You're like, oh, it worked in your mind because you can't say it, but like, how did that first week go? Week 2, like nothing's happening. You still can't talk. This angel's not coming back. Like, do you think that doubt keeps playing in his mind? Or do you think the fact that he can't talk brings some kind of some additional faith to it that didn't have it before?
I think it was a slow process. I think it was a slow developing, to your point, I think it was a slow developing process. I don't even think the initial inability to speak was the flashpoint. I think it was just slowly matured over the next 9 months.
Now, do you think that punishment, that consequence, was it warranted?
Oh, I'm not making not making speculation.
No. I mean, it's on our list of questions we have.
Do I think it's warranted? Like,
I do. I think it's great.
I think the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament Bible, full of our creation in the image of God, and also full of a God who has a knack for a little bit of humor, And I love that Gabriel
Irony.
I love that Gabriel's like, now this is happening. It's great. Like it was, like I said, I wouldn't have wanted it even to have done it to me, but it's good stuff.
Yeah, I think for me it shows. I think the consequences, or the action of not being able to speak, shows Zechariah that when his wife does get pregnant, it's because of God, not because it wasn't just something that, like, maybe that, because if he didn't have that lasting consequence, could it be easy that this angel just goes away, you don't ever see him again, you don't ever talk to him, and then your wife gets pregnant and you're like, hey, I did it finally, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's that it's that extra bit of layer to, like, prove to Zechariah that, like, this is actually from God, and not just it was a coincidence. You were crazy. You ate some bad mushrooms or something, or bad bread, or, some moldy bread, and you had a hallucination, and now you have a kid, right? But that, you know what I mean? It's this lasting effect to prove to him, like, hey, no, look, this is real, right? This is really happening. Had Zechariah come to it and said, oh, and been faithful with it, he wouldn't have needed that lasting, I want to say punishment, but that lasting evidence, or that lasting proof through the 9 months or 10 months or whatever, right? So for me, I think it is warranted from that perspective, right? That it's not necessarily a punishment. It's not you did something bad, now God or the angels punishing you, but it's to prove a point.
It's part of the process. It's part of the story. It's part of the, like, juxtapose it with, like, the Messianic secret, right? Like with Jesus telling, like, okay, Peter, you've identified me as the Messiah, the chosen one, the Christ. Now don't go telling everybody about this, right?
Keep that one to yourself.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what we got going on here. Like, you're going to have a son. Name's going to be John. He's going to point the way to the Lord. He's going to prepare the path for the Messiah, for the chosen one to come. Your son John's going to come. Don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anybody. I think if you,
that's going to happen in its own time.
If you look at it too from the perspective of Paul on the road to Damascus, right? Like it's kind of the same thing. Had he not had that blindness, and for a short period of time, but even for a period of time, would it have been easier for him to kind of dismiss this random voice in his head, right? It's almost the same thing. And if you really think about it, it's kind of not a one-off event.
No,
right?
And I think we need time. We need time as humans. I think we're pretty dense.
I think we get denser as we get older, right? Like, children wouldn't have taken this situation, seeing an angel and being told something. They would have been like, okay, sounds great. You know what I mean? Like they don't have that same doubt. I think that doubt grows with us over time and into maturity. So like, my 4-year-old, like I could tell him anything and be like, oh, okay, great. That sounds great.
Wonderful.
The moon's made of cheese. Wow. Okay. But at some point you hit that age of like, where that doubt
start
starts
rationalizing and questioning.
Exactly.
And,
And so I think that that's what really makes us. The world puts that on us, right?
Yeah.
Not maybe it's not our nature, right? Because our nature as a child would be to accept this.
I think it is.
It's our influence from the world and other imperfect people around us showing imperfection.
Yeah, but I think like
causes us
natural skepticism's, probably like a survival instinct, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, if not, the majority of the world would just be gullible people. Like that would be that.
Well,
Is that the survival instinct?
Scams are like billion-dollar. I was gonna say like organizations, but people get milked out of billions of dollars to.
I would say that I would say if you're quantifying things in billions of dollars of revenue or whatever, I think there's probably exponentially more revenue generated from legitimate business operations and practices by
I just mean
people.
from a gullibility standpoint, right? Like getting an email saying, this charge for this internet security suite hit your credit card for $400. Thank you so much. If you didn't authorize this, please click this link, and people click it and then, oh yeah, oh, I'm sorry, just give me your credit card number. And then, like the ability to don't do that. That's a scam.
Don't give anybody your credit card.
Anyway, so I think that we still have, I still think we have a little ways to go for some doubt is okay in some situations. Right. So what I do think though, that it, kind of to wrap up a little bit here, I think the story does remind us though that there are some barriers to faith, right? Like in Zechariah's case, it's probably this past of not being able to have a child, not being able to have a child, not being able to have a child, right? So it's almost like what was it, Einstein that said doing the same thing over and over again expecting a different result is the definition of insanity.
Correct.
Right? Okay, so like in his mind, like, hey man, been there, tried that, like it doesn't work, so it's really that past history or that past performance is making him not believe that it can happen, right? And so we all have these different barriers to faith, or to to have that faith. What do you think's probably, like, in your mind, what do you think's like the biggest barrier, in not to you but in general, of like the population? What do you think the biggest barrier is?
Our putting our human timeline on, applying our human timeline to an eternal God, I think is our biggest pitfall on a lot of faith.
Yeah.
We are so very small. God is so very big. Our existence is the blink of an eye. So that he's eternal. So whenever we're looking for something or expecting something or praying for something or hoping for, right? Like we put such a tiny timeline on. We want things to be done on our little minuscule timeline and not on the grandiose, like between like,
it's like a nanosecond for God, but it's like, hey, this past 15 years, I really would like a child,
between like Abraham to the exile, and then from like the exile to Jesus, like I don't know, there's something like 14, 20, 28 some odd generations in there.
Yeah.
Okay, generations.
Generations.
Of people hoping and passing on hope to the next generation for this thing that is in God's plan, this coming of a Messiah, this gets passed on for generations, generation after generation after generation, like, and then we're like, oh God, please help me get through this next week. Right?
Yeah. Help me get through this Christmas dinner I have to have with the in-laws.
And so anyway, I'm not trying to downplay anybody else's plight out there.
No.
Like, but when I take some perspective and have a little bit of gratitude for the situation I'm in, the situation around me, the place that I live, the community that is supportive, the people and the lives that are positive, like the faith that our predecessors in the faith possessed to soldier on is so impressive. And I often feel like I haven't been tested to that level, and it's so impressive. But I think that's part of our modern obstacle to this faith. I think it's a big one. I think it's
I'll add to that, because I agree with everything you said, but I will add also trying to make sense or rationalize something that we can't comprehend.
Yeah, that,
you know what I mean? Like, I think like we're trying to be like, well, if I only understood God, then I would believe, right? But like,
and I think that's total arrogance.
Yeah.
That we think we can understand.
We can understand, you know, and in our pursuit to try to understand everything around us.
It's so arrogant.
It is, you know.
That's how I view it.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, it's like an ant trying to imagine what it's like to be a human.
Yeah, trying to intellectually
think
decode
about
how your thought process.
Exactly. Like it just doesn't compute. And I'm not saying you can't try to get to know God and understand what God wants from you, but you can't fathom how God built the universe. Like, it's something that just, you know, like,
no.
Dude, I have trouble trying to rationalize sometimes and figure out the Trinity, right? The
I
Holy
don't
Trinity.
Understand how a telephone works.
I mean,
I'm talking landline.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I just, there's so many things that I just don't get that I could spend my entire life thinking about, and I'll probably never understand. Why in the heck am I trying to fully, like, know something that is impossible for me to know?
I think that's how we end this episode.
Right.
I don't know.
Because we're out of time.
You don't know.
Nobody knows.
We're out of time.
That's why nobody should be listening to them.
Hey, we will either leave that in or cut it from the end of this episode. If we had the ability for you to vote, we could let you do that for the next episode. We don't have it. So anyway, have a good one. Catch you next week.
Bye.